right, thank you. Thank you, Wade. So what I'm going to try to do is I try to do it in particular at the Sacramento meetings is just give you a brief overview of where we've come recently with the task force, some of our major accomplishments, our funding challenges, and also to give you a little bit of a preview of what's ahead with our update. We are here in Sacramento. I want to thank everybody connected to the San Diego meeting that we held back in April. It was a tremendous success. I think we had total between people there and online, 500 to 600 people. The zoo just pulled out all the stops to make it a wonderful experience for everybody to sort of be immersed in a sort of fabulous environment. And we managed, I think, to pull off a nice blend of very substantive conversations together with a lot of networking through our resource fair, long lunches, et cetera. So I think we're hitting our stride in trying to make these regional meetings work effectively, but keep us in the loop on what's working for you. We are headed up to Tahoe in October. Hope to see you all then, and then back here in Sacramento in December. So as Wade said, we're coming off of just some historic investments in wildfire resilience in California, $2.6 billion on the state side, $3.4 billion on the Forest Service side, and lots more from BLM, NRCS, and other federal agencies spread over dozens of different departments and programs. So it's been quite a challenge in trying to effectively manage and distribute that funding over time. Just on the California side, let me stop back here. This chart kind of gives you a flavor of how the funds are distributed just by CAL FIRE and Department of Conservation, a dozen different programs, all trying to distribute tens of millions of dollars each to more effectively get in the hands of regional collaboratives and others that are doing great work out there. Having said all that, we also face a major fiscal challenge right now at both the state and federal levels. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of graphs that illustrate that. The first one is on the state side. What you see here at the bottom is roughly $200 million that the wildfire resilience agencies have had for the last several years, given from our cap and trade funds that comes from the Air Resources Board and the state's climate strategy. So that $200 million that's on the bottom, together with base funding of CAL FIRE, state parks, and other agencies that have been working for the past decade on forest health, that's sort of our base. Then we had a big budget surplus, as you know, and so we got, fortunately, significant benefits out of that budget surplus. 700 million in 21, a billion in 22, almost 800 in 23, and so on. But as you can see from this graph, we're now in a different situation fiscally. Well, the boom time is over. We still have a lot of money to spend, a lot of money to invest, but not at the levels that we've seen in the past. So we're going to have to face that issue head on, work even harder, as we're going to talk about this afternoon, to make sure the funding that we do have is spent effectively. We have a very similar situation on the federal side. What you see on the bottom on the left is basically about $500 million that, from what we understand, the region spends annually for staffing projects. That's been fairly steady for the last 5 or 6 years. We got major infusion of federal money under the Biden administration that also enabled them to ramp up significantly in the last 3 years. But again, just as we saw on the state side, that money is winding down. The same is true even to a greater extent for the grant money that's out there for non-federal land. Huge infusion of money in 23 and 24, but that's also winding down. So we take sort of 3 messages from this. One is going to be the key focus of this afternoon, is we've got to do better at leveraging existing amounts of funding. We're making great progress. You'll hear about that today, but there's a lot more we can do to leverage federal, state, local, tribal funding across the board. Secondly, we got to accelerate our efforts to get tools in your hands to better plan and prioritize projects to make sure we're hitting the highest priorities with this funding. And then third, we're going to be accelerating our efforts to better document the benefits of this funding. As Jennifer and Wade have said, beyond acres treated, we're developing core metrics and all sorts of decision support systems that will enable you to tell a better story about the fire resilience benefits, the carbon benefits, the biodiversity benefits, the water benefits of your projects. So it's all part of a system of regional investment strategies that we hope to build to better leverage and coordinate the funding that we continue to have, and to make the case that you all have made with us for sustained funding over time to build on the momentum that we've achieved with this funding. Number one, as Wade and Jennifer both said, in terms of progress, has been prescribed fire. We'll give you a complete summary in October. That's when we're going to launch our update of our tracking system. That's going to go through activity acres. It's going to go through footprint acres by agency, by treatment. We're going to lay all that out in October. In the meantime, though, the one area where we know we're accelerating progress is prescribed fire. Both the CAL FIRE side and the Forest Service rapidly accelerating their work. And also we're getting better and better at partnering with the air quality agencies to increase the size of those prescribed fires. We're not going to get where we need to go if we're doing prescribed fires over hundreds of acres. They need to be over thousands of acres. So you're going to see a lot more of that as we move forward. And again, Wade mentioned this as well as Joe. CAL FIRE and other agencies are also making significant progress at the community level. CAL FIRE continues to successfully hit its target of over 250,000 inspections every year, and that will be ramping up. And OES is partnering with CAL FIRE on a new initiative on home hardening that is we're expecting to be expanded over time as we move ahead. And then under public health, ARB and the Department of Public Health are introducing a whole series of maps, toolkits, explainers to educate people better on smoke, where it's happening, what its impacts are, dashboards that are going to be readily available, clean air centers, a whole range of activities underway to deal with the potential impacts of smokes as we hit fire season. We're also, as many of you know, because you're part of this, continuing to develop a series of joint strategies. We've got two that are complete, one on beneficial fire, one on sustainable recreation, and we've got 5 drafts: fire adapted communities, reforestation, wood utilization, and private landowner, and several more underway. Also, with respect to permit synchronization, we've heard from the private industry that we need to do a better job of aligning our permitting process. So we've got launching a brand new process to get a better handle on how we can coordinate the various state agencies that need to sign off on private projects. As Wade said, we're going to continue to be focused on regional partnerships and getting money to those regions that are working effectively. The RFFC program, which just started several years ago, has already managed to invest more than $150 million in increasingly sophisticated collaboratives. It used to be, for those of you who've been around as long as I have, all state money largely went to shovel-ready projects. That was the emphasis. What we've learned over time from you is that's important to do, but that also can leave people behind. So it's really important to supplement money for on-the-ground shovel-ready projects with capacity building money to get people up, collaboratives up to where they need to be. Through that, we have 8 activated or near complete plans all over the state that would not have been possible without this money. And CAL FIRE is stepping up to fund many of those partnerships, to lead the way, as we'll talk about later this morning, towards shifting from small grants scattered throughout the state to block grants where folks can really focus on getting bundles of projects funded at the same time so we can accelerate our work over time. That's been a key priority of the Forest Service and the Wildfire Crisis Strategy, to find those landscapes across the state that are both high priority and high capacity and grant them tens of millions of dollars each. We're going to be following that lead at the state level and partnering with the Forest Service to identify those areas across the state that are both high priorities and high capacity to get them the resources they need over time. And we're doing that in partnership, as you'll hear later this morning, with NIFWIT, with TNC, with NRCS, with a whole range of agencies that can bring resources together to our various collaboratives. And then, of course, as Wade said, we're going to continue to focus on regional profiles, regional resource kits. Our job at the state level and the federal level is to try to give these collaboratives the tools they need to go quicker, to go faster, and to go bigger. We don't want to have a situation where a collaborative knows what they need to do, but they don't have the skills, they don't have the resources, they don't have the decision-making tools. We don't want folks to scramble to find millions of dollars just to assess the health of their forest, to prioritize projects. So we're going to do everything we can at our level to keep the momentum going on these regional resources kits so that you can move quicker and faster. And then our tribal partnerships are strengthening every day. You can see a long, long list of programs here. Huge grant programs from CNRA, from CAL FIRE, from the Forest Service, not just to give tribes money to do projects, but to partner with them, to collaborate on stewardship, co-ownership across the board. Again, you're going to see this as a trend that's going to accelerate over the next several years. And then finally, as I've mentioned, pouring a lot of money into measuring progress beyond acres treated. We've got a core set of draft metrics that are undergoing review. We've got a monitoring webpage that'll be up soon, a whole list of tools to better get a handle on the great benefits of the projects that are underway. And then on the communication side, we continue to improve there as well. As many of you know, I hope, we've got a website that you can go to that gives you all the information you need on all aspects of wildfire in California. We have our monthly update. We recently did a survey of folks. We got two messages. One message was for the folks who are active, folks out there in the field, we seem to be hitting the mark pretty well, but we need to do a better job with the public, and we need to do a better job with elected officials at both the state and federal level. So we're going to be leaning on many of you, because that's where the work is being done out there in the field, to partner with you in getting the messages out more clearly to your elected officials and to the public in your respective areas. So look for that in the next several months as well. So that gives you kind of a snapshot of context of where we are. We also face a daunting task of updating our action plan. It doesn't seem that it was that long ago, but the action plan came out in January of 2021, and we've come a long, long way since then. And so the first thing we're going to do, of course, is build on the progress that we've already made. The joint strategies I talked about, all of those are going to be incorporated into the action plan. The tracking system, a new assessment that's going to be coming out soon from CAL FIRE, Forest Range and Assessment, will give us great information, up-to-date information on the health of our forest and wildlands throughout the state. And then we're going to supplement that with two major new efforts. One is a science synthesis. We're asking our science advisory panel to give us an independent assessment of the state of science right now. What are the major factors that are affecting forest and wildland and community resilience throughout the state in different areas? What's working and what's not working? Are fuel breaks working? Where are they working, et cetera? What projects are most effective in Southern California versus Northern California? We will plan at least one, maybe more workshops on that so that we all have a better understanding of where the science is taking us as we move forward. And then we're going to supplement that with a new set of modeling and the cost benefit analysis that's going to look at various combinations for each of our regions of thinning, of prescribed fire, ignition reduction, to try to help our regional collaboratives better assess the cost and benefits of different approaches. Obviously, in the Sierra Nevada, focus is going to be on expanding more fire and really focusing also on reforesting, those areas that have suffered catastrophic fire. So we're going to take these building blocks and we're going to build both a state and a set of regional strategies. What we've heard from you clearly in our regional meetings is a regional strategy for Sierra Nevada is going to be very different than a regional strategy from Southern California. We will clearly explain that. We'll try to develop targets across the board for each of those regions and give the legislature, give Congress, give our elected officials a much better sense of what it's going to take to make each of those forests resilient and what mix of methods might be most appropriate in terms of treatments to get us where we need to be. So that'll be a big focus of this plan, developing 4 in-depth regional strategies for each of our 4 major regions of the state, and then supplement that with the resources we've talked about: regional investment strategies, regional profiles, regional resources kits that enable the regions to reach those targets as quickly as possible. And then finally, as I've said a number of times, a lot of effort going into measuring progress so that we can better tell our story about the benefits and effectiveness of the projects that are underway. So that gives you, I hope, at least a brief teaser and a snapshot of where we're headed. In terms of the schedule, our goal for right now is to try to get most of the work done, the initial work done, by the end of the year. You see the joint strategies up there that we hope to get new drafts of by October, science synthesis by the end of the year, updates to our regional investment strategy, our data tools, and a new charter for the task force by the end of the year. That'll all be supplemented by the scenario modeling and the cost benefit analysis. Then we will try to pull all this together and integrate it into a comprehensive strategy. Early next year, we have a core team we put together to do that. And then we'll go through, obviously, extensive review at both the state and federal levels and stakeholder levels in the spring. So that's our general strategy. It's likely to shift somewhat over time, but we're committed to doing what we need to do to try to get this action plan underway. I want to make sort of 2 points about the schedule where you can plug in. One, of course, is with the joint strategies. If you add up all the folks that are involved, it's a couple hundred people. So I want to encourage everybody that's involved in our various work groups to stay involved. You can be sure that your efforts will pay off in the action plan. Secondly, I want folks to put October 10th on their calendars. As I said before, we're going to launch our tracker in mid-October. It's not only going to look at acres treated, but it's also going to look at how we're doing based on our new metrics. So I think it'll be a really interesting snapshot of where we've come the last several years across the board. So look for that in October. And then in December, tentatively, we're thinking about bringing in the Science Advisory Panel to have a spirited conversation about what they found, about what are the major factors affecting forest and wildland health, what's working, what's not working, give the Executive Council a great opportunity to really ask some tough, penetrating questions about how we could be doing things differently, what's working, et cetera. So that's the overall schedule. Stay tuned, as always, through our website and our other materials, and look forward to partnering with you all as we move ahead.
Thanks so much, Patrick. That was a really impressive review of all that's happening. And I'd invite in a moment any executive committee member to ask you any question. I'll say this, which is, coming into office, the Governor Newsom, who we work for, was really focused on priority 1A was getting immediate, improvement in our response capacity for fires. Check in some respects, with, always more work to do. Second was getting these projects on the ground to protect communities and landscapes. We're also focused, that's the 1900. But the third is really what's embodied in your report, and that is to set ourselves up for coming decades of building wildfire resilience. We know that this will never be a mission accomplished. This is going to be a constant investment, constant focus to get our landscapes healthy and then keep our landscapes healthy. So I appreciate everybody, hundreds of people across the state that are plugging into this task force, because we are really working to build the frameworks moving forward so we continue to enhance our safety and the health of our landscapes, not only in years to come, but in decades to come. And I'll just say, the thing I'm most excited about as it relates to that treatment tracker is not necessarily just understanding the amount of treatments, but the locations. I see Barney Grant in the audience here, and I remember when we were drafting up the agreement between then Forest Service Chief Christensen and Governor Newsom, first year of office, and with then Regional Forester Randy Moore, we were really focused on how can we merge our maps so that we understand all the projects that are happening at a local level, at a state level, at a federal level, all the projects that are being planned. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to do 30 to 40 million acres of projects. We know that, nor do we have to, but we have to plan out our projects effectively to ensure that we get good fire on the ground and we avoid the catastrophic wildfire. So I'm really excited that the treatment tracker will not only have numbers, but will have spatial information. So anybody from across California or anywhere really can go on and see where projects have happened and where they're being planned. Is that fair to say? Yeah, great. Let me turn it over to Director Acefa.
Just a fantastic overview, and I'm always amazed in terms of the work that is being done, not only about the responses on the current conditions, but really planning for the future. And I cannot emphasize enough what you just said towards the end, which is how we plan for the next 10 years. And this is really about sort of institutional memory as well as preparedness, collectively, regionally. And the reason I think that is important, and I just came back from Armenia. We have a sister state called Syunik Province, a significant mountainous region that is very similar to California. And what they've found in some of the science has shown is they have very similar conditions as we do, except they are about 10 years behind. They have been looking at our sort of preparedness in the work that we're doing. They're really, really eager to understand how they could prepare for 10 years from now. And they're asking for us, for our support in that. What they've realized is they really have to start planning now. So I can't emphasize enough, we're very good at responding and paying attention when there's wildfire. And a couple of months from now, if that settles down, we all sort of go back, meaning, you know, the people who really need to know. So it's really critical part of, I think, the work that we're doing here, preparing the state, you know, for the decade that's going to come forward.
Sam, I'm so glad you brought that up. We are not alone in California or in the American West. This wildfire crisis is hitting across the world. We do a lot of work with other governments in Mediterranean climates like ours. The European Mediterranean, think the fires in Greece recently, but also in the Southern Hemisphere with Mediterranean climates, think Chile, Australia, parts of South Africa. And we're all experiencing these conditions together. So I'm so appreciative that you brought this up. You know, the work that we're doing in this task force, there's plenty to learn from other places, but I also feel like we can be a model in our approach to other places that are struggling with the same crisis.
Give you a real world example. I just heard from a guy who used to repair my bike in Seattle a few years ago. He called, he hadn't heard from me. And he said he just came back from about 6 months ago from Switzerland, in a valley where his family lives in a very secluded area. He said 2 of his cousins or nephews are suffering significant amount of asthma. And what they found out is about 3 years ago in the wildfire from California and the Pacific Northwest, smoke was going all the way around the world and had settled in that valley. And this is a very, very small place. And that's kind of how interconnected all these issues are, especially, you know, impacts of wildfire. So I just want to share that I just heard this recently.
I appreciate that. So seeing no other questions, let's get underway with our panels.